Ben Shapiro had a fucking remarkable take. Don't worry, it's all biology, not a social contagion of any sort. Nearly 20% of Gen Z is LGBT. That's 1 in 5 people. All right, I'm going to hit this for our boy here. Got to do it to him for the one time. You know what I'm saying? Hold up. Classic. It's so fucking easy to destroy fools like this, bro. I swear to God. Here, let's get a fucking juice on it. Let's see if we can hit this. This is a 7-hour tweet already at 16K. It's going to be a little hard, but we'll see if we can hit him with a fucking ratio here. We got 36,000 people in here. Who knows?
5 hours later.
What does that mean? Oh, here, let me tell you. For those of you who don't know, this is a very handy chart. Whenever people try to say that there aren't, now 7.2% of U.S. adults identify as LGBT. How fucked up is that? Or whatever. Or now 19.7% of the population, Gen Zers, identify as LGBT. How fucked up is that? Ask them a question about the history of left-handedness. For those of you who do not know, back in the day, it was seen as a bad thing to be left-handed. So people would be forcibly trained to use their right hand until, that is, I guess, somewhere around the 1920s, when they decided that that was a very fucking stupid practice. And all of a sudden, left-handedness skyrocketed until it hit 12% and normalized, and has been pretty much around 12%, give or take, since then. It is the exact same argument for those who do not understand. People are just left-handed. But if you force them to write with their right hands, of course, they're going to be less openly left-handed people. Once people are free to be left-handed without being whipped into being right-handed, they are going to be openly left-handed like it's not a big deal. That is the same thing with LGBT. The point is, people do not choose to be LGBT, just like they don't choose to be left-handed. They just are. It's more so a matter of people coming to terms with that and being more open-minded. Now, here, I'll give you another example. Autism. The number of boys that were diagnosed with autism or to be on the autism spectrum skyrocketed over the course of the 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s. Part of the reason for why that was the case was because we just learned more about this spectrum. It didn't mean that, there was some other reason. There was some other external factor. It wasn't the fucking vaccines like what these dumbasses think. It was just that we were better at diagnosing people with autism. The only reason why there are more people in younger generations that openly identify as LGBT than the generations prior, well, there's a couple different reasons, but the most important one is that people are just more open-minded. That's it. And people like Ben Shapiro routinely try to stop that as best as possible. If it were up to Ben Shapiro, he would force these numbers down by naming, shaming, maybe even criminalizing this kind of behavior. When there's less stigma surrounding being LGBT, more people will be more open about their sexuality, their gender expression, and the like. That is the reality. This is why when you show the history of left-handedness, it's a great counter to fucking dumbasses that say, no, people are just being promoted this lifestyle, and that's precisely the reason why people are more likely to identify as LGBT. Now, there's another thing that you can ask them, which is a very good question to ask people all the time. Even if it was a choice, why is that bad? Why is that a bad thing? It's not, but even if it was, why is that something that bothers you? If especially you are hurting no one. That's the other part of this story that is also fucking hilarious, which is that even if it was a choice, who gives a f? And that's where this kind of falls apart, because ultimately, every single conversation around this revolves around our antiquated understanding of Christianity and, basically social planning. That's it. That's the only reason. It's the motherfucking Bible and your understanding of the motherfucking Bible. Your misunderstanding of the motherfucking Bible. It being a choice is a religious argument? Exactly. But it doesn't matter. Even if it was a fucking choice, why is that bad? Ask people that question. It's not a choice, but even if it was, why is it bad? It always comes down to because God said so. which actually leads me to a very good segue. Matt Walsh, the sweaty little gremlin who got absolutely cumstered and dumpstered upon by a random college student. And then, he was shitting his fucking pants over this interaction. This is a great example of the whole God perspective. Matt Walsh cut this out of the video that he did. Let's take a look at this interaction that took place.
In fact, there is the ultimate well-being for a human being is to live in the truth with a deep recognition of truth. And that
we've never seen anybody walk on water, but there are so many stories of people who have been changed by by God. They've seen the light of God. And so we sort of turn a blind eye to science, right?
We're going to
need science because it's for our benefit.
We're gonna let someone else ask a few questions.
Sounds like they're kind of scared of the answer.
Before you walk away, though, hey, wait a minute.
For those of you who didn't understand what he was saying, they're talking about trans existence and biology. Now, of course, if you ask actual scientists on the matter, most scientists recognize that gender is social conditioning, socially conditioned, learned behavior, and removed. Even if it could be tied back to sex, biology, your biological gender, whatever the these guys have adopted to make themselves seem like they're speaking in scientific terms. The reality is that even biology is not as binary and as rigid as the way that these fucking charlatans describe it. But one thing that the Republicans have done, these right-wing nut jobs have done very well and very effectively over the course of the past couple of years, especially so, is re-propagandize their positions not as like pure religious nonsense, but instead one coming from like this moral perspective or this logical perspective or this perspective rooted in science. That's not the case, obviously. Isn't it just that transness is biological? I wouldn't say gender is totally a construct. Gender, of course, is a construct. It absolutely is. It's like if your foot is your sex, gender is the sock that you put on it or the shoe that you wear with it.
Sounds like they're kind of scared of the answer.
Before you walk away, though, hey, wait a minute.
Look. He refuses to answer the fucking God question. He just very quickly goes, "You went and talked about how you like literally fucking totally avoid like science when it comes to God." Basically, he just brought up the fucking the God thing where you're like, you talk about trans people like from the perspective of science, even though science doesn't agree with you, but you literally always avoid the science when you talk about like Christianity and how God has impacted people in a positive way or religion has impacted people in a positive way. Nobody's walking on water. There is also some audio issues here, I think. I don't know if Matt Walsh was able to actually hear him.
Wait a minute. What is a woman? Can you define the term?
But immediately his counter is this. He's like, haha, what is a woman? Fucking owned.
What is a woman is a person who aligns with feminine traits that we traditionally associate with females.
And everyone in crowd goes crazy when he says, what is a woman? Can you tell me that? And then the crowd starts booing him as soon as he's like, well, this is what I think a woman is.
Or that people that align with the feminine side of the spectrum. So that's my answer. But I just want to make clear that you
I can't hear you.
As soon as I brought up a point that you didn't want to respond to. So
I couldn't hear what you say your last comment.
I was just saying I want to point out that you asked me to leave as soon as I brought up something you didn't want to respond to. So
what did I want to respond to?
I mentioned religion being a source of where we deny or look past science for the greater sense of humanity. And you asked me to leave.
I did respond to that. Okay. I responded to that quite directly. So
I'm sorry I can't hear you.
All right.
I responded to that quite succinctly. No, you didn't.
Thank you for your question.
Next question. So, I still can't hear you.
I can't hear you. You got to speak up.
I can't hear you. You got to speak up. He did not respond quite correctly. Maybe there were some audio issues. I would love to hear what Matt Walsh has to say about that. Ultimately, Matt Walsh is a theocratic fascist. So here's the thing. Even if he didn't hear him, it's kind of funny that like his immediate counter is, what is a woman? Like, that's like a slam dunk in that room. And he's right. You know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? Like, everyone is so fucking stupid in that room and so geared towards transphobia that like the slam dunk there is like, what is a woman? Everyone goes, oh, it's crazy. And then like the moment that he answers the question, everyone's like, boo, f- you, shut up, pussy. But the point is this, and the point always will be this. The main reason why these people, these cowards, cut this propaganda is not legitimately because they have this like actual scientific perspective on the matter. They don't. It's not rooted within science. Okay, but can you explain what a woman is? Yeah, I can. Hunter Schafer is a woman. Okay, Matt Walsh claims that she's not. There you go. Conversation f***ing over. Okay, Matt Walsh would point to her and go, hey, can you get my bag from that man over there? And not a single person would understand what Matt Walsh is saying. You want to know why? Because gender is social. It's an expression. Hunter Schafer is a woman. Hunter Schafer happens to be a trans woman. Matt Walsh wants to act like she is not a woman. Yeah, Matt Walsh would look at this person, this man, okay, and say, that's a woman. Before we get into NBs and before we get into like passing as like an importance or whatever, my point is it opens the door up for a lot of people to truly understand, a lot of transphobic people to truly understand, like, wait a minute, hold up. Yeah, I guess it is true. Like you would never point to this person and go, no, I want to make sure this man pees in the same fucking bathroom with my child. Okay. Why the would you want that? This is a trans man. Do you want him to pee in the women's restroom? Do you think that that is fine and normal and good? Do you think that Matt Walsh would point to him if he didn't know that he was a trans man? Do you think Matt Walsh would point to him and go, hey, can you get my bag from near that woman right there and point to Buck? No, of course not. Because gender is not defined on the boundaries that Matt Walsh and others try to define gender as. It's not. You can't even argue that because they would say yes to prove their point. No, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm using like super passing people. Like there's a reason why I'm doing this. There's a reason why this works really well with transphobic people. Because when you have someone who is like weaponizing transphobia, who is like insanely transphobic, and then the rest of the people are just like kind of apathetic, they look to a situation like the one that I just presented and think the transphobic guy is fucking insane. Do you understand? This is to make the transphobic person look ridiculous in a larger crowd, while also simultaneously proving that gender is a social construct and that it's not what Matt Walsh and the like try to define it as. Yeah, casually transphobic people will never look to a passing trans person like this and go, that person is actually 100% a woman still. Okay? This is such a funny way to like talk about transphobia and whatnot while, this little beautiful nugget of fur is just in the background exploring and freaking out because she's bored and needs attention. Last point is that Matt Walsh is a fucking freak, a loser. Let trans people live. Let trans people exist. Matt Walsh.